Jim Roman here for a special episode of the Jim Roman Show, where we help you build a better business to build a better life. And I'm your host, Jim Roman, with a special episode. When we release this episode, I will be on vacation, but I couldn't go on vacation without doing another show to be able to help you grow your business. I want to welcome you to this special episode. I'm going to be sharing with you some of the best books that help me build a better business to build a better life. So thank you for joining me in this episode. As always, please comment below any questions, concerns, and or books that you recommend. So let's jump into it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jim Roman. And for the last 20 years, I've been helping people grow their business while having a life. And I find that a lot of times for people, they just need a little help, a little helping hand, maybe a little guidance, a little bit of a direction. And for me, all the business books that I read over the years by other business people, business consultants and advisors have made the biggest difference for me. And so in this episode, I'm going to be sharing some of my best books that I really enjoyed. Stick around for a bonus set of books. There are some books at the very end I want to share with you that changed my life. The first set of books changed my business, but the bonus books that I'll share with you at the very end changed my life, literally. And I'll talk about that later. Where did the premise of these books come from? In my last episode, I talked about how we take a balanced approach to business. Years ago, the Spirit led me to pull my books off the shelf and write down the table of contents and figure out what is the key to success and what causes business to fail. And as I was writing down the table of contents, that added up to about 28 items. And I thought, well, that's a lot of items to consider keys to success in business. Instead, I started seeing a pattern. And in that pattern, it ultimately came down to 8 key components that I created an acronym around it called balance. I briefly talked about that in the previous episode. You can go to our website at Jim Roman Online, click on our programs page, and there is a Start Here free course that talks about not only the 9 stages of business ownership, it also talks about a balanced business and a bunch of other things like that. So go check that out. But essentially, the balance is an acronym that I created out of all the books that I ever read. And I found that these 8 elements, these key best practices, will help you not only build a better business, but build a better life. The exact same process will help you go from micro to millions while having a life, whether you're trying to go to $250,000, $500,000, or $1 million more in revenue. And the balance stands for B is for block timing, A is for acquiring clients, L is for leadership, the second A is for automatic processes, the N is for numbers, the C is for clarity, the E is for employees and staff, and finally, delivery, balanced. And I have found in the books that I've read, the mentors that I've had, and my own experiences, that these key components makes a more balanced business, which makes a balanced life. So let's jump into my best books. And by the way, if you want a copy of these books, and because I'm talking too fast because I'm originally from Pennsylvania, please feel free to just send a message to me or email me at questions@askjimroman.com, and I'll send you a list of the books, not only the ones I'm talking about today, some other books that I recommend that I won't have time to go into. So let's go into the first letter, B, in balance, some of my favorite books. So B stands for block timing. One of the first books I read on the concept was The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker. And essentially in this book, he says as an executive, and anybody in business is technically an executive, you have to be ruthless with your time. It is your most valuable asset. So often we let other people take up our time, distract us, take over their priorities so we don't get to our priorities. And this is one of my favorite books on the subject of time, of its concept, Be Ruthless. I highly, highly recommend that. Another book I really enjoy is The Power of Full Engagement. I was first introduced this years ago with some colleagues of mine. What's really powerful about The Power of Full Engagement is that they will say that time management is not the key to success, but energy management. Have you ever had that experience? Thank God it's 5 o'clock. Thank God it's Friday. You're burned out. And there's some reasons for that you're burnt out is because most likely you ended up multitasking, and multitasking is a myth. You're ultimately switch tasking. You're getting something done 10%, another thing 10%, and another 10%. You're not getting anything done 100%. And that's where the third book comes in, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he talks about the quadrants of urgent and important, that you have things that are urgent and important, and it's a rush, got to get it done. You just got to be reactive. The second quadrant is important, but not urgent. This is an area that you want to be working on your business. He goes on to talk about, urgent, not important, not urgent, not important. And the whole book talks about that. I would highly recommend you look in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And then the final book that I don't have in front of me today is The 7-Minute Difference by Alison Lewis. And she talks about maximizing your time. She talks about how your brain takes 15 minutes from switching from one task to the other task, and that takes time. In other words, if you're working on a marketing project and then you switch over to a financial product, your brain needs 15 minutes to re-engage itself, re-gear itself. That's why a lot of times people go to the water cooler or go get a cup of coffee or need to go get a smoke because they're switching tasks and they don't realize it, but their brain needs switching time. And it's an interesting dynamic. I probably could do a whole episode just on block timing and just on the concept of how your brain works and how time works, and ultimately comes down to how do you manage yourself. And so one of the keys to success in business, whether you're a small business, micro, or a big business, million business, is blocking your time, being ruthless with time, how you use your time. So we do have a seminar on block timing that goes into this in more detail. But again, if it were me and I were you, maybe that's what you need to take your business and life to the next level, is blocking your time, managing your time so no other people take it over. Let's talk about the second letter, A, acquiring clients. So acquiring clients, my favorite book about acquiring clients is How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success by Frank Bettcher. And essentially, this isn't a book about selling. It's more about getting people to buy from you. It is a principles that I love. If you know my story, and I talked about a couple episodes ago, I almost gave up on life. I almost gave up on business. Years ago in 1996, I was in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I was selling advertisement. I went into this shop in the Williamsburg shops, and I asked the gentleman if he wanted to buy. And I thought he said no. And it really crushed me. And I went and I sat down on the bench and I sat to myself, you know what, I'm going to go home and I'm going to just end it. I mean, I'm done. I'm done of this rejection. This is at a time that I just ended up being broken, bankrupt, and recently homeless, that I was just getting back on my feet. That was in 95. In 96, I started getting back in life, back in my life together. And I just was like, I'm done. And this voice inside my head said, go ask him why he said no. I'm like, who asks an advertiser why he said no? Go ask him why he says no. And I like looked around and there was nobody there. And I'm like, okay, I'll go ask him. And I truly believe it was God or something like that speaking to me. And I believe in God, so I believe it was God. And I'm walking over and going, why do I ask somebody why they said no? But I did anyway. I just listened to the voice. I went into the store and I said, can I ask you why he said no? He goes, I'm not. I said, no, come back next week. I'll buy. And in fact, it's so cheap, I'll get other advertisers for you. And I walked out of that shop going to myself, what just happened? I almost was going to end everything over the word no, N-O. And I just want to say a footnote. A good friend of mine for the last 20 years, Fred Carreras from Midlothian, Virginia, once taught me, when someone says no to you, they don't mean N-O, they mean K-N-O-W. They don't know enough to buy from you. And so Fred, that one's for you, which I really loved. I loved that, he didn't know enough and he wanted to buy. But back to my story, I almost wanted to end it all. And so that day I made a commitment that I was going to become the best salesperson in the world because I will never, ever worry about having a job. And what I love about this book is not about getting people to buy, sell them, but to buy from them. And Frank is an insurance agent in the book, real true story about this gentleman back in the 50s and how he built a very successful business. And so if you have call reluctance, sales reluctance, and you just want to get people to buy from you, I highly recommend this book. I can't say enough of that. I also recommend the book, Go for No. I love Go for No. I didn't know exactly what it was about. I thought it was about going for the no, but it really is not about going for the no as much as be persistent. They talk about several successful people in the book, one of them being Abraham Lincoln. If you knew how many times that Abraham Lincoln failed, lost, you would give up. But he didn't. He kept on being persistent and he pursued his passion and ultimately became our president of the United States. There's another story about the gentleman who invented the airbag, how long it took him to get the airbag put into cars. You know, airbags save lives today. I won't tell you the story, but let me tell you this. He waited long enough that he became a millionaire many times over. And it talks about his perseverance. And by the way, one of my bonus books I'll talk about in a moment, at the end is another about how immigrants come to America to be persistent and be successful, but I do digress. So what I would be doing if I wanted to be successful in business and take my business to the next level is to acquire clients on a regular, consistent basis, getting people to buy from me and to be persistent to reaching my goals and aspirations. And by the way, I love how thin these two books are, just saying. So that's the A in balance. And there's other books, but these are my two favorite in that particular category. The next letter is L for leadership. Leadership, I think, is key to business. Whether you're a small business or a big business, whether you're a one-person business or a 100-person business, leadership is key. But there's so many topics on leadership. What do you mean by leadership? And I think about leadership in the sense of what do I want to be, act like as a leader? And two of my books on the subject that I really like is Small Giants by Bo Burlingham and 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And these two books are very good. Let's talk about John's book. I only read, just to be totally honest, the first 4 chapters. And just by reading the first 4 chapters, it changed me as a leader. In one of the chapters, it talks about John, who was a pastor at the time at his first church. And he was ready to run his meeting. He's excited. He's young. He's like, I can't wait to get this meeting started. And before he could, one of the elders made a motion to clean up the basement and fix the front door. And someone seconded that motion, and the meeting was adjourned. And John's like, what? I'm supposed to be running the meeting. And he got all frustrated. And then he found out that one of the elders liked to garden. And so he went over to the person's house and he was talking to this while gardening and said, hey, I think we need to do X at the church. And the elder says, oh yeah, we need to do that. Yeah. At the next meeting, before John could start the meeting, once again, an elder said, I make a motion to fix X. And someone seconded, and the meeting was adjourned. And if I remember correctly, John's point was that you don't always have to be the one that lead to be the leader. You see the law of influence, as they say. And I got to tell you, it's very powerful. So if you are leading other people, if you want to be a leader in your community, I highly recommend this. And again, I've only read the first 4 chapters and it made a difference. I plan on reading more, just so you know. The second book on leadership is a different spin than most people would think about Small Giant. Small Giant, it's about 6 companies who chose to be great versus large. Jim Collins, the author of Built to Sell, said, Small Giants is to small businesses as built to sell, Jim Collins, hey, can stop the recording. There you go. Jim Collins is good to greatest to big businesses. In other words, these are 6 companies who chose to build their business differently, but successfully. And the reason why this is very impactful for me is I only knew how to run the business my parents taught me. I grew up in the restaurant industry, if you know my story, when I was a kid, 13. And I did that up until I went into the Air Force. Got out of the Air Force, went back into the restaurant business, and pretty much that's all I knew about running a business and what a business looked like. And so my thought process beyond that was limited. But then when I read how 6 companies chose 6 different ways to build their business, I was like, oh my God, I really like story number 2 and I like story number 4. And I'm going to combine that. And it gave me a new perspective on what I want my business to look like now and in the future. And so as a leader, it's important how we lead others and how we lead ourselves, but it also as a leader, what do we want our organization to look like? So that's the L in balance. At this moment, hopefully you can comment below anything that you've gotten out of this. Maybe there's a book on BAL that you would recommend. Please make a comment below on that. I read these regularly, even when we're not doing it live, like right now. So please make comments below. And again, if you want these resources, reach out to me at questions@askjimroman.com. Now we're on to the next A, the second A, for acquiring automatic processes. How do you automate your business through processes, people, and or solutions out there? And there are 2 books on that. The first book, and in fact, the first business book I ever read was E-Myth by Michael Gerber. This is known to be the business Bible of the industry, of the world. I highly, highly, highly recommend this. If you ever get into business, if you're in business, to read this book. There are so many good nuggets in this, from having your aim to your organizational chart, but ultimately managing you as your personalities of business. And I don't know if you know that, but there are three personalities of business. There is the technician, the person who gets the work done. There's the manager who manages the business and manages the work. And then there's the entrepreneur who grows the business. And when I read this first, I was realizing, oh my God, I tend to be a technician and an entrepreneur in most cases. Either I'm doing the work always, 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 or I'm thinking about the future. The problem I had was I was spending sometimes too much in the future and not getting the work done, or getting the work done and not looking towards the future. And I did little to no management of the business. And so he talks about these personalities, and I really think it's huge. But what I also love about the book regarding to automatic processes, he says putting processes in your business to treat it like a franchise. so that your first customer has the exact same experience as your 1,000 customers. In fact, I actually took that philosophy and applied it to my sales approach and created what I call the 7 C's to getting people to buy. The 7 C's is a 7-step process that I take every prospect through, that if I follow the process, I most likely get them as a client. If I don't follow the process, a lot of times I don't get them as a client. So putting processes in place, creating your business like a franchise is pretty critical about that. And one of the ways of implementing that concept is the book Built to Sell by John Warlow. My frustration with Michael, to be totally honest, I read his whole series. I listened to his whole series, and he never tells you how to. He promises to, and he never does. But John Warlow, who actually has worked with Michael Gerber and other organizations like that, teaches you how to. I read this book quicker than any other book that I have ever read, and it made the biggest difference. So much that I called up John and I said, I got to meet you. I need to see you speak. And I ended up buying 300 of his books, bringing him into town and having him speak to a group of CEOs with my strategic partners, Virginia Council CEOs and Economic Development, Small Business Development Center with Mike Leonard. And what I love about this, it's not about getting your business to sell it. It is to position, if you did sell it, it becomes more valuable. Position it so that you can leave the business to do what you want to do. You can see this person's feet are up on the desk. That means this business is sellable, but doesn't have to sell it because it can run without that particular owner. So again, putting processes in place is key to be able to have a life beyond your business, but also making an experience for your customers that they rave about you. So we're halfway through the balance process. I just want to take a moment. Again, thank you if you're still with us. I'm super excited about this. I'm not sure how long this video will go because I do have to get to vacation, but hopefully you're seeing that there's a lot of wisdom in these books. And these are just some of my favorite books. And that if you create a more balanced business, you create a more balanced life, and then you can have the business that you want. Okay, let's move on to the 5th letter, and that is N for numbers. My favorite book is Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits by Greg Crabtree. Now, I wasn't a numbers person back in the day, but I had a mentor many years ago, Lisa Radke, who knew my numbers better than me. She made a huge difference for me. And if you know my story, I've talked about Lisa before, wonderful mentor. She taught me the importance of knowing your numbers. I find when I know my numbers, I hit my numbers. When I don't know my numbers, I typically don't hit my numbers. And simple numbers is a simple way of learning about numbers. It's as simple as this. Chapter 1 talks about paying yourself. Chapter 2 talks about paying yourself again and paying your taxes. Yes, pay your taxes. You should make enough money. That's not a problem. Chapter 3 reminds you to pay yourself, pay your taxes, and pay your people appropriate. And then 4th chapter talks about having enough cash reserves so that if anything happens in the world, you can survive and, more importantly, thrive. And then in the last chapter, it sums up the whole book. So if you just want to skip to the end and just read the last chapter on the principles, it does it that for you. But I could say this is one of the best books on numbers. It's my favorite books on numbers. It's simple written. If you're a business owner, you need to know your numbers. I always say not knowing your numbers is like playing golf without keeping score. You might be having fun, but you don't know how you're doing. And knowing your numbers makes a big, big difference. Now we're on to the C in balance. And I have 3 books to talk about. One of my newest books I'm super excited to read. One of the first books, again, is Small Giants. One of my favorite books. Small Giants, Built to Sell, and E-Myth are my trifecta. I do digress. But in Small Giants, as it comes to clarity, is clear on what you want your business to look like, feel like, act like. What do you want the culture to be? And these are 6 examples of 6 companies who chose to go the direction they chose, to be great, not necessarily huge. Another great book is Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and knowing your purpose and passion. We've been talking about purpose and passion for years, and it wasn't until years later this book came out, and I'm like, oh my God, Simon says it so well. If you want to get a good sense of Simon Sinek, Start With Why, you can Google him under YouTube and look up golden circles. And he essentially says that when people go out and share their products and services, they always talk about what they do and how they do it. But people do business with people because of why you do it. And rarely do we get to that. And I believe if we can lead with our why, we'll attract more of the right type of customers. If we can share our why, we'll get most people to do business with us if we do that. And so Google Simon Sinek. Sinek is S-I-N-E-K. Golden Circles in YouTube. He sums it up, and then go get the book, and then it helps you about talking about applying it. And then last with clarity. We know our purpose and passion, our why. and we know what we want our business to look like, feel like, act like culturally, then there's where beyond that business. And we have a course, the 5 drivers you should check out at jimromanonline.com under programs. The 5 drivers goes into these particular topics. But the newest book is Time Off. I just got this off of Amazon.com, and we talk to our clients about building a better business to build a better life. And how do you build a better life? You got to take time off. And so this book, again, at first glance, I haven't read it. I'm excited. It's a little thick. If you know me, I like thin books. They talk about if you need to get more sleep to get time off. It talks about if you need to get more work done to take time off. It talks about if you need solitude, exercise, reflection, play, the future of work, technology, travel. It covers all of these particular topics. So I'm quite excited because I know people who aren't sleeping very well. They don't have peace in their life very well. And so I'm hoping that this book will address some of those things so that you can start to have less stress and more time. So I haven't read this book. I'm super excited to read it. I would take it on my vacation, but it's too heavy for my luggage. 2 more letters. Please stick with me in the balance. The next letter is E for employees and staff. And the book that I recommend on this is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Forgive me if I butchered your name. And what I love about this particular book, and I'm looking up as I talk about this, is he talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And ultimately, for a team to get together, there's some key components that you need to have in place to be able to have a powerful team. And those are, number 1, what is a dysfunction of a team is absent of trust. If your team doesn't trust each other, they don't trust you, you can't really build a team. And I'll just show you this real quick. You can Google the 5 dysfunctions of a team. You can image it, and this image will come up. I love this image. The second tier is the fear of conflict. Your employees will not speak up if they are fearful of the ramifications. And so often you want your employees to be honest, but the moment you yell at them or scold them or reprimand them, then they clam up. And that's going to affect your team dynamics and your people's performance. Lack of commitment is another element. The accountability. And then last but not least is inattention to results, not measuring your success, your key performance indicators. Love, love, love this book. He has a series of books. Patrick does a good job. I highly recommend that. Another book I have not read, but a good friend of mine and consultant, Michael Marshall from Chester, Virginia, recommends this book, Why Employees Don't Do What They're Supposed to Do and What to Do About It. I love this. I started reading parts of this book, and it's pretty powerful. You can Google that as well, or Amazon that and read the table of contents. Ultimately, the reason why your people aren't performing, one of the cases is because of you as a leader. And that's probably because maybe you didn't read the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, at least the 4 chapters. So that's employees. So again, Patrick, I love, 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 love. And then finally, before I get to my bonus books, is D for delivery, balance, D for delivery. To be totally honest with you, I did the research originally and pulled all the table of contents from my books. I had the word balance, only 7 elements. And I actually used to say, we bring balance to business. And it wasn't until I was listening to Tony Hesh on a podcast, one of the founders of Zappos, and he talked about delivering happiness, is his book. And I haven't read it, but I hear it's really good. And I was delivering happiness, delivering. We need a D, balanced. So I had to change all my marketing materials to say, we bring a balanced business. And there are several books on this very topic. So if delivery, creating a customer experience is important to you to get raving fans, to get reviews, to get more revenue, then these are the books I recommend. Indispensable by Joe Calloway. And I love the subtitle, and that is How to Become the Company That Your Customers Cannot Live Without. I'll read that again. Indispensable. How to become the company that your customers can't live without. In other words, if they left you as a client, they feel guilty. And he talks about becoming that indispensable. And there's tip after tip after tip after tip on how you can become indispensable to your clients. And I think it's very, very important. I want to become indispensable to my clients because I really want them to be with us for a period of time that they can actually build a business and have a life in the process. And that doesn't happen overnight. Another book is Onward by Howard Schultz. Onward by Howard Schultz. And whether you like Starbucks or not, they built a very successful business. And Howard goes into his book about Onward on building that kind of experience. I don't know if you know the story, but Howard used to be, Starbucks used to actually be in the bean business, not the coffee business, but the coffee bean business. And the story goes that Howard went over to Italy, had a phenomenal experience, came back to the founders of Starbucks and said, hey, I want to create these experiences. I want to have coffee shops that were very similar to Italy. And they're like, nope, we're in the bean business. And that's it. And that bothered Howard. So what Howard did is get a group of people together and they bought Starbucks. They bought the image, bought the company. And the Starbucks you have today is one of the reasons why it is today, because he wanted to create an experience. Well, over the years, you may know that Howard stepped down as CEO just to sit on the board as chairman. And over time, that experience went away. If you went into a Starbucks, which I rarely do, but when I did, you can see all of this material, all of these products, all of this retail stuff blocking the baristas. And that experience essentially went away. And so Howard said, enough, I'm coming back. We're shutting down all the stores and we're retraining everybody so we can go back to the original experience that we built in the very beginning. And he lost millions of dollars for shutting down. I don't know how long it was, a couple of days to retrain the whole entire company around the world. The board was on his back saying, no, you're going to lose money. He goes, no, we're going to make more money in the end. And look at them today. And he talks about that experience and why that's so important. And I think that would make a big difference. And then finally, a book I read probably 25 years ago is Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard. Creating Raving Fans creates that experience, create those reviews, get those referrals, gets that revenue. And so those are the books that I have read over the years, been recommended over the years to help people build a better business, to build a better life. And there's a particular order I have found that you want to do the balance. I don't have time to go into that today. If you'd like to know more about our services, please reach out to me, comment below, message me, go to our website at jimromanonline.com. But today was really just to share some of these exciting things where I've learned my wisdom. I have not been successful on my own. In fact, I say no one has ever been successful on their own. So don't be a lone ranger, because business isn't easy, but it can be simpler with a team, with support, with coaches, advisors, and people like that. And the books that I have read have made me the business person I am today. So as I finish up to go on my vacation, I have some bonus books that I hate to rush, but I need to get going, that have changed my life literally. I mentioned to you several times before that I went broken, bankrupt, and homeless for a short period of time. And I was very fortunate to have this couple take me into their home and to feed me. And I, a little depressed, failed at my first business miserably. And so I was a little down on my luck, down on my spirit. And I noticed this book on the shelf, The Science of Getting Rich and the Science of Being Great. And I said to the couple, what is that book? And they go, you don't know this book by Wallace Wattles? You don't, this is amazing book. In fact, this book he gave away for free. You can't get it anywhere else right now. But you could get a PDF of it, I think, online. But ultimately, I am a believer in God. And essentially, God believes in abundance. And ultimately, because of this book, I was able to mentally turn my life around. Robert Schuller's book, I've read Robert Schuller's stuff, that also helped me turn my life around. I forget the name of that series. It's the cassette tape. You can know how long it was. But mindset and matters, I think, in this. And so God wants us to have abundance. I want you to have abundance. And this is a book that changed my life. Another book was Self-Made in America by John McCormick. This is about perseverance. How do immigrants come to America with nothing and succeed? He is the first company to ever have a hair salon in malls after being told no numerous times. But him and his wife persisted, and now you see hair salons in malls across the country. This is by the book. I learned about masterminding for this concept by Larry Burkett. I specifically love the group study program. And then finally, I couldn't end this without my Bible. Whether you believe in God or not, there's a lot of wisdom in this book. And I do believe in God, and I believe in the wisdom that's within this book. I believe that it's inspired word of God, and that by looking at the principles of love makes the biggest difference in the world. So I want to finish up to head on to my vacation, and hopefully this was invaluable to you. Longer than I expected, but I wanted to really share the things that were important to me. So please reach out to me, comment below, tell me what books that you read in the areas of balance. books have made a difference in your success and in your life. I would really, truly love to see that. So until our next episode, I want to thank you. I'm Jim Roman. Remember, the more you know, the more we grow. See you soon. Have a great day. See you next week. Take care. Bye.